I'm going to make a start. So welcome to today's webinar, Changing the Game, Lessons in Internal Comms from Elite Sports. Firstly, just a bit of housekeeping. We are going to share a recording of today's session with everybody that is on the chat. So if you do have to drop off for whatever reason, you'll get a full recording, but hopefully we'll manage to keep most of you until the end. I've just put something into the chat, so hopefully you can see that. We would love to get you to say hello, tell us, what business you're joining from, whereabouts in the world you're joining us from today. I know we've got attendees from all over the world, hopefully joining us today, which is very exciting. And any questions that you have for our speakers today, Sarah and Beth, if you could please just put them into the chat, we'll move them into our Q&A, and we'll try and get through as many of your questions as we can at the end of today. So I will start by introducing myself. I'm Mark. I'm a customer success manager here at Oak, and I work closely with internal comms teams, HR, operations across a wide range of industries, sports, retail, housing, tech, manufacturing. So today we are here to explore what internal comms can learn from elite sports. Alignment, speed and culture, all these things play a vital role in both sport and comms. So we're going to look at what makes it a unique space to work in, some of the key challenges, and we're also going to focus on 5 lessons from elite sport that you can hopefully apply to your own organizations. And like I've said, we're going to get to a Q&A at the end. So please keep your questions coming, and we will just try and get through as many of them as we possibly can. So I would like to introduce today's guest speakers. I am going to start with Sarah Bell from Scottish Rugby, the internal comms lead. I am just going to bring Sarah into the chat now. Hi, Sarah. If you don't mind just giving us a brief introduction to yourself and your role.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Sarah. I work here at Scottish Rugby at Scottish Gas Moneyfield. I'm the internal comms lead, so have been in the role for approximately for 8 months now. I've been with the business for about 6 years. Over 6 years, and prior to that, my career to date has been in the external sphere, so very much in media, comms, media ops, media management of external sports, and working with athletes, so probably bring a very different background to internal comms compared to some other colleagues in the industry. But yeah, it's really good working here.
Good. Well, thanks for joining us today. And I'm also going to bring in Bethan from UK Sport. Beth, you could intro yourself for us, please.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Beth, or Bethan. I am based here in London, but I work here at UK Sport. I've worked here for the last 4 years, about 2 years in the employee engagement space. I have worked across different sectors in marketing, HR and operations for the last 10 years. Done sort of mining industry, finance, and now I'm very lucky and privileged to be working in elite sport.
Well, thank you for joining us. So I am going to kick off today's discussion with a question. Beth, for you first. What does great internal comms mean in elite sport for you?
Yeah, for us, it means direct. We've got to get it to all different layers of hierarchy as well as operations, so on the field, as well as back office. Open, we're very big on that, is how you get to high performance outcomes, and also accessible because we have quite a diverse range of roles, people, backgrounds, sports, and so on.
Sarah, same question to you.
I think for us it's probably a few C's. So clarity is a huge thing. One of our core values is we want to create clarity in everything that we do. So really being clear in our message, what is it that our colleagues need to know, and why do they need to know it, what's important to them. But also making sure that the comms is concise as well, because there's nothing worse than getting a lovely fluffy message to somebody who doesn't appreciate a lovely fluffy message. But equally, and the third one for us is probably confidence in owning your message, and that's a real culture change and transition we're going through in ensuring that colleagues own their message, because that's the project that they're working on, or that's the area of business that they've got specialties in.
Okay. Good. I mean, I think that what we're hoping that everyone's going to take away today, it's not just focusing on the good stuff either. I think we also want to look at the challenges, because I think hopefully we can use your guys' experience in your roles to help kind of uncover some solutions that people can take away with them. So I think we want to look at, why this space is so unique that you guys work in, and I suppose to Sarah, what makes internal comms uniquely challenging in sport?
I think for us particularly within rugby and within Scottish rugby in particular, we are in the unique situation that, unlike I suppose many other professional sports teams, we national governing body, we own our two professional sports teams in Edinburgh Rugby and Glasgow Warriors, and therefore it's the variety of roles right across the business. So we have physios versus medical versus finance versus legal versus commercial and marketing, which I'm sure a lot of organisations have, but yeah, there's probably very few organisations that are working with coaches and physios on the pitch and have colleagues who are also in marketing and commercial and things like that too. So it's really unique that there's such a spread of roles and such a spread of people who have different skill sets and therefore want to be communicated in different ways as well.
Yeah. Okay. Uniquely challenging, definitely. Beth, like what's some of the biggest challenges you think you've had to solve in your role in recent years at UK Sport?
Yeah, I think for me, some of the challenges are sort of, they are because it's elite sport, but at the same time, it's your normal business challenges, going hybrid, the C word that we don't like to talk about, and sort of the impacts that had on the workplaces. So when I've come into this role, the sort of three areas I've tried to solve the problem is personalization. We had a lot of feedback from staff, but no one actually knew anyone anymore because people were out busy at sports or different, finance very much became just finance and less office time. So personalization was one of them. We found our comms were very corporate and, it was always from the HR team, finance team, performance advisor team, instead of just being from myself or those people. We became a very siloed organization as well at the same time. And I think that is quite common in elite sports. And so that was a huge issue that I would say we haven't solved, we're trying to solve. And then getting people to take ownership of internal comms. It's not one person's, as much as sometimes it feels like that. It's on everyone to break down those silos and to add their personal touch to things. But how do we get them to feel comfortable to own it? That has been, I'd say it was a significant problem, but with quite a few changes, we've got quite far in that space.
Okay, brilliant. What do you think the biggest difference is between, not the biggest difference, but what are the differences between sport and a more corporate environment, do you think, Sarah?
I think for us, it's kind of like we touched on there. It's because of the variety of roles. Yes, we absolutely have a tone of voice as internal comms, as external comms, and internal comms. We have a tone of voice, but equally we also have house style and things like that. I think I might have dropped off. But I think trying to get that one size fits all approach, it's never going to work. So really just accepting that what colleagues might be used to in a previous workplace might be very, very different to what they're going to be used to here. And yeah, I think that's definitely one of the differences. I've worked in corporate environments as well, but like I say, there's very few corporate environments that have such a variety of roles.
Okay, great. Yeah, good insights. I think that we've got some lessons coming up that we're going to try and cover as many of these bits and pieces as we can. I think what I'd like to do now is we're going to do a poll, because I think we want to involve as many of the attendees as possible. So we're going to bring a poll onto the screen, and if you can all answer this, because we kind of want to understand, we're going to try and cover as many of these as we can over the course of the kind of next half an hour, 45 minutes, just to understand what challenges everybody else on the call is experiencing in their own roles. I know certainly in my role, these are the five main things that I kind of tackle as I'm working with different organizations with their comm strategies and the systems that they've got in place. Ooh, very varied. Okay. Leadership and culture gaps. Storming into the lead. Certainly something we see a lot. I'll give it 5 more seconds. Okay, thank you everyone. That's very, very useful. Like I say, we're going to cover these as you know, over the next half an hour. If we don't cover something, like I said, you know, please drop any questions that you've got into the chat, and you know, we can put them to Sarah and Beth at the end of the call, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. We're going to go into our first lesson now, which is target and personalized communications. So I think both Sarah and Beth have already touched on this in that kind of that opening question around the challenges. I will start by asking Beth, how do you ensure your deskless and your dispersed frontline workers still feel included in company comms and the company culture?
Yeah, this is something I think as an organization we sort of go in peaks and troughs with. We sort of struggled for years to get them. It's almost like how to get them to engage back with the rest of the staff, I would say, is more the problem. But we've come a really long way with that, and we've now, like, I have to almost stop them wanting to engage. I'm like, too much. But there's sort of a few things that we've done to put in place. And I think one thing in elite sport is egos. So in a way, we've stroked their egos to ensure that they want to do it back. They want to show off their work. They want to show their success. They want to show what impact they've had on sport. So I guess sometimes that could be seen as a negative thing, but we've kind of tried to flip it on the positives. And realistically, our deskless people actually doing the coolest work. They're the ones that are with the sports or with the major and mega events. And so for us, it's how do we pull the information out of them to show staff? Because the more engagement they get back, the more their egos are stroked, the more they're going to do it again. So that has been one of our biggest successes, I've found. As well as we've tried to make it quite fun and simple. So we used to be much more polished, I would say, for internal comms. Now we're more than happy for a performance advisor or someone at the ground of games to send a little, you know, a little influencer video that they're really proud of, even if it should really be cut. Like, we just don't, like, people love that stuff. People love the real stuff. They also, a lot of them love doing it. We've kind of created a little bit of fun, but also it's simple. They don't have to jump through hurdles to actually post their content. And that has been a huge part. And the more they put in, the more they've got out. And I think as an organization, it's kind of had a knock-on effect. It's broken down the silos. We know what they're working on. We know what the sport language is. And so I think they now see the benefits from it. We have the engagement rates from Oak, which once I show them that, they're like, oh, people actually care about what we do. And that has been, again, really useful. So there's probably different, I wouldn't say we've got it perfect. Absolutely not. But I would say we've definitely come a long way. And I think making it as simple as possible and less hurdles. And at the end of the day, we're not posting things externally. It doesn't have to be 100% polished. Some of our director of performance is quite famous for her little Instagram filters that she does on her videos. And they probably make a lot of you guys skip a beat and not want to post them. But everyone loved it. They loved the little music behind it, no matter how trashy it was.
Great. No, good answer. And I noticed you managed to slip the word hurdle in, a couple of puns in your answer as well, which is always nice. Sarah, at Scottish Rugby, what's worked best in practice for you regarding your kind of like your deskless and your frontline workers in the organisation?
I think we are, and this is where the similarities come to both the Scottish Rugby and UK sport. I think we're very, very similar to Bethan. We've spoke about this numerous times, haven't we? But yeah, it's the glamour jobs, it's the cool jobs that are the deskless and dispersed ones, and by that we mean, you know, your coaches, your physios, your strength and conditioning coaches. They're really cool jobs that when everyone says they want to work in sport, that's what they instantly think of. They don't think of our roles, and those are the really cool jobs. And like you say, it's sometimes we find within rugby as well that we would call them, you know, the rugby departments. So we have high performance department. We also have a rugby development department. We look after all grassroots rugby and domestic rugby in Scotland too, and then we also have our 2 professional teams as well. So yeah, I think it's sometimes those teams and those departments, they are out in the fields. Some of our people can be up in the Shetland Islands, they can be down in Dumfries and Galloway, they can be all over the place. They could be on a ferry to Orkney for 12 hours, and they're still able to access what we need them to access and get messages to them. But I think ultimately using the Oak platform, we call it In Touch. If you don't know, that's a rugby term, but we use In Touch as that one central hub. So prior to coming into this role, we were sending a lot of Outlook emails. I don't know how many other people either started internal comms or are still using a lot of Outlook emails within internal comms, and we still do to an extent, but we would maybe be sending 2 or 3 a month, if that, maybe. Whereas prior to starting this role, we were sending at least 2, 3, 4 a week. But now with Outlook emails, I do a bit of internal marketing. So the call to action is a link to In Touch and a link to the Oak platform that has that critical piece of information. So that's always accessible, whether that's through the app version, through the desktop version. It works on iPad. And equally using the push notifications as well, that can get through to people really, really quickly if it is a critical message. So yeah, I think all the different communications channels and different platforms that using a program like Oak helps with, as well as traditional ones like Outlook or just even in person, good old talking to somebody helps with. There's so many different ways that you can reach the dispersed or the really cool jobs, even if they think they don't need to know about something. But like Bethan said, the more you engage with them, the better they are at engaging back, which I think is really important.
Brilliant. So, I mean, you both touched on kind of the varied roles within both organisations, and that, you know, ultimately being one of the challenges. How are you able to maintain like consistency and alignment by trying to reach all of these different roles with the same comms? First to Beth, I'll ask that one too.
Yeah. For us, to be fair, I use this principle of everything in life, the KISS principle. In sport, especially high performance and Paralympic sport, there's so many unnecessary big words, acronyms. We just love extending a sentence for the sake of extending it, and I refuse to do that in any way. It's not on brand for me. So what I've done is I've stripped everything right back. When comms go out to all staff, we need to make sure that our finance officer understands what on earth we're talking about. And when we send finance stuff out, we need to ensure our sport advisor understands what the hell's going on. So what I always do is I personally remove all the, I got told I wasn't allowed to swear. We remove all the fluff. And then I have put the lens on of kind of 14-year-old understand what we're talking about, or someone outside of this business. Because if they can, everyone in the organisation can. No one's going to look at some email and go, oh, that's not complicated enough. But someone will go, what on earth are people talking about? Yeah, so we use that, and that means that the language that's spoken in our events department, performance and business strategy, enabling department, it all kind of lines up without anyone actually realising. Obviously, when people said rogue comms, and I haven't had my simple eyes on it, it goes one way, and I spend a lot of time explaining. But that is kind of the approach we do, is we just strip it right out.
Okay. Is there anything to add on that one?
I think you saw me shaking nodding my head there. the alignment is within, and like Bethan's touched on, working in sport. If you hear another acronym for something else, wow, you could hear £1 for every acronym you heard working in sport. If you LTADP, if you know what a long-term athlete development plan is, then good on you, and you don't work in sport. Like, yeah, for us what's worked, like Bethan's touched on, is I've drawn upon my external comm skills. So really just writing in plain English, like Bethan says, like if the 14-year-old could understand it, great. Like then it means that everyone can understand it. And really just aligning our house style, our tone of voice that's external. So we are a big brand as well. So we obviously produce a lot of external content with our social media teams and comms teams and things. So if our external and our internal comms are aligning, then it makes things really, really easy to repurpose internally when we do have external news that needs to come internally first. makes things really, really easy to position and to understand, and it saves a lot of time as well if you're having to repurpose external news internally but just for a different tone of voice, or maybe like extra information that you need to know. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities there, but I think yeah, if any organisation can get rid of acronyms, I think we're doing really well to make sure everyone's aligned.
I mean, you mentioned then like you're a big organisation. Murrayfield in itself is a big event space. Like, have you got any examples from major events that you guys have done regarding like, reaching all of these different job roles with simple messaging?
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Scottish Gas Murrayfield's a stadium that we own as an organisation, and we host a variety of concerts here as well as some football matches. We had the likes of Oasis and Taylor Swift with us just recently, which was a huge undertaking. Because of that, and because we're based in the office here as well, and Edinburgh Rugby are based out of here too, there are a lot of operational requirements that are put into building things like Guinness Men's Six Nations, Guinness Women's Six Nations, concerts, and from weeks out from the actual event dates, we will be getting contractors on site, we'll be getting broadcast riggers on site and things like that. So in terms of making sure information's aligned, we used one of we used Oak to build pages and direct people to where we could have one simple hub that was major event guidance, and that's for everything. So that's for concerts, big matches, international matches, domestic events that we have here as well, and that's just reiterating everything that's happening. So we'll have tabs for each day of the week, we'll have really clear, concise information. I'll work with our events team and health and safety and occupational health and safety and security to find out who's building what when. We have a number of bars that come in, a number of rigging that come in that aren't there all the time. So what's getting built when, what area of the stadium is out of bounds, where can you use, where can you book, what's been impacted. We have tours as well, we have external events and conferences. So it's a huge undertaking to make sure that everyone's aligned and everyone kind of knows what's happening. It is not perfect. My gosh, is it not perfect? Do not claim to that. But, we make it work. Can it be better? Absolutely. But what we have at the moment and what we're able to do and signpost people to a page that gets updated all the time and that is updated, can be updated in real time, and that people have ownership for, it's really, really helpful and really, really good as a starting point. But like we say, everything can always be better.
Yeah. Good. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's two things. It's the reach and the relevance, especially across varied roles. And again, I think that translates into, I'm sure there's people on today's call who, might not necessarily work in sport, but can understand the kind of challenges there. I'll summarize this lesson. I mean, I think the things we've talked about, you guys have talked about well, is you can't have a one size fits all strategy. That's, it's got to be varied. And you need to be targeting your employees based on their job role, their location, their working hours, what device they might be, have in their hand or in the pocket. So, a mobile first experience can help if you're dealing, with your frontline workers, certainly. So, yeah, I'll move us on to the second lesson, which is about two-way communication. I think it ties in quite nicely. And again, it's not just about broadcasting information anymore. We've already talked about, the back and forth with our employees and how crucial that can be. Beth, to you, like, how important is it to give employees a voice at UK Sport?
Extremely. We probably almost learnt that by doing, like, employees were asking for it. It wasn't until we did it we saw the positive impact that it has. Again, it comes back to people being remote workers, even if they're office space, only going in one day a week, for example, and then there's on the ground, like, giving employees a voice gives them a place to talk about their work, talk about what's going on, talk about the cool behind the scenes stuff that's going on. Also just ask for help. We really wanted to move away from, internal comms and being the answer to everything. Like, just put a question on the timeline and see if someone else can help you. To work together to build that collaboration. We found the employee voice and giving them the key to do that. Sarah and I have spoken quite a lot about this, but from just creating a safe space we call it Inside Chat, on our work platform, creating that safe place for people to feel like they can post a news story, post a timeline story. We have a range of different ones, build a hub without it being a me job, and kind of going out there and forcing people to do it. The employee voice has allowed people, not allowed, it's given people the confidence to share their work, to create hubs, to make other people's lives easier, to create run clubs, to create payday drink clubs, to do all these range of different things. But it's for us, employee voice gave other employees the confidence who might not have the confidence to do so. And the knock-on effect has been significant.
Brilliant. I suppose, Sarah, have you seen a shift in engagement when the communications have become a bit more two-way?
Yeah, definitely. And Bethan mentioned it there when you first connected us together, Mark. Bethan and I, one of the first things that we spoke about was what you were saying, Bethan, and maybe it might be obvious to others, but within our organisation, we were prior to me coming to the role and just starting, we were using an internal comms alias as a profile, which ultimately, as comms professionals, it hides. We know this, but it hides the message behind something that's faceless and something that's not. No one really owns that message, and it comes back to one of the C's that I first mentioned, and confidence and owning your own message. So after the chat with Bethan, you guys said that you're quite firm with actually every news item must have somebody's author on it, or every post must have a profile on it, and whether it's mine, it might be mine a lot of the time, but equally it's normally somebody relating to that. So I'd say that was, I don't know, that was maybe last year, Bethan, wasn't it? It was early last year, but we're probably just coming towards the end of phase 1 of this. And I was just saying to my director of comms there this morning that I think we're actually starting to enter a phase 2. Like, we are not perfect in this, but we are a lot better than we were. We have the timelines. People are really starting to do that organically, which again might seem obvious to some, but when you're changing a culture, that's going to take time. And I think that, yeah, people are really starting to do that organically. People are starting to upload the moments really organically as well. But using the internal comms alias that we still have, it's only really used to change settings or to change an author for people who aren't quite comfortable doing that yet. I'm going off for a period of time over the summer and it's a convent, so I'm creating how-to guides and going all through those sorts of things, so people are going to have to do it themselves. So we're going to have to be in that phase 2. So yeah, it's really exciting, but I think seeing our senior leadership actually posting their own content, seeing chief exec actually posting his own content, posting his own videos, posting his own little short updates, I think that's been like almost like a light bulb to other SLT members and to other sort of middle management who have then said, oh, okay, well, if he can do it, I can do it too. So I think it's gave them a real onus and a real confidence that they can own their own message.
Yeah, brilliant. I think, yeah, I mean, we saw it in the poll before, like, things like leadership, was one of the most voted for things, and we're going to come on to that on the next lesson, actually. I mean, one more question on this is just around the tactics, I suppose. Like, you've given some examples there, and, people will have noticed that we do have a couple of slides which should kind of just show what your intranet spaces look like, the kind of the mobile version, the desktop version, and we can flag those up, and maybe when we get to the Q&A we can go through those in a little bit more detail. But just the tactics of like how to get people into that two-way communication, like what are the starting points that other people could take away from this? How do you get people in your organization to respond to the comms that you're putting out there? Beth.
So we had quite a tough love approach to this. We drew a line in the sand a bit because we just found it was becoming too much of internal comms job, and then we do other things. So we just drew a line in the sand and we said, if you want something on Inside Chat, you will be posting it, and you are I will help you, but your name will be going on it. And if you're on a timeline, you'll be posting it. I'm not going to lie, 2 years later, I'm still trying to get the IT team to post on the timeline. So it has been an uphill battle. And if stuff like people are not allowed to send an all-staff email unless it has come by me, and the CEO is obviously allowed to send an all-staff email. I have no importance there. But we just had a tough love approach, and slowly, it does take time, but slowly people do engage. It's also quite new to people, so they're like, oh, what is this article that's posted by busier over here. And they just get a little bit nosier. And as people, we used to be like, how the hell do we only have like 4 likes when we have this many views? But at the same time, like in the office, we could hear chatter, we could hear people talking about it. I just told people, I was like, can you please like the post? I went out, I had no shame about it. And then now slowly, like I wouldn't say we get the most likes and comments. Everyone views it. And we have, I think, I can't remember the exact numbers, Mark, but it's like 90% of people engage in a fortnight on Inside Chat. So it has worked. And we also had a very big tough love approach on like, when employees were like, I don't know this information, I didn't see this. Okay, it was on Inside Chat, that's your fault. But we just took the blame away from internal comms. And you do need leadership support in that. But like, if someone doesn't know that the print is down, the print's down. Oh well, it's not my problem. It was on Inside Track for a week. And just having that, like, it's almost gonna have pretty thick skin for it, but it is 2 years on. It is so worth it. Like, I have so much more time to do other things.
Yeah, brilliant.
It's great.
Sarah, any tactics that you can share that have worked well for you guys?
I think, very, very similar to Beth, like being really firm. And we were quite similar, aren't we? But I think being really, really firm and say, like, this is what's going to happen. And like you say, you need senior leadership to buy in, but, you know, they generally will, and that's great. Yeah. I think one thing that actually helped us as well was that our IT team were able to set In Touch the old platform as like the main I'm not sure what the technical term is, but when you open up a browser, that's the first thing that will come up automatically if you're using it. So that was really helpful. I think they could only do it on Windows, but it was really, really helpful in getting buy-in to that. But I think, getting as many people as possible to actually use their profile, like I touched on the previous answer. And I think, just badgering people, having no shame and going up to them in the office and saying, hey, you actually like, go and like that for me, because like, I know you like it. Just being really firm and just being, you might get a really simple request in, like I just got one the other day from somebody saying, can you post that? Well actually, no, the best, as an internal comms lead, like I'm advising you that this is the best way to communicate your message. This is the best place for it. If you post that with your profile, given your role, given your, people can see your picture, given your weight within the organisation too, like that's going to hold more weight, and that message is going to come across so much stronger because it comes from you. Brilliant. And you're kind of rubbing their ego a little bit, but it definitely works.
Yeah, well, I mean, it takes us perfectly onto our next lesson, which is around humanising leadership, because, I think the tricky thing here is authentic communication from leaders within an organisation. So getting them involved in internal comms is the first bit, but also how do you get them to come across as authentic? And I think that's a really good example of, if they're the person behind the comms, get them to post it. That's how you can do it. So I suppose to Sarah, like how do you bring leaders into internal comms in an authentic way?
I think I was really lucky when I came into this role that we had a new chief exec who started January 25 rather, and he brought a lot of new fresh ideas too, so I was really lucky with that. But one of the successes that we've had is him recording his own video, so that might be monthly, bi-monthly, or whenever it's really relevant. I think there's not much point in recording a video just for the sake of it, but something that's came across really well and that went down really, really well with the colleagues is he just sent me that on Teams. He recorded it himself, he just sent me it on Teams, I uploaded it and just made sure it was front and centre of In Touch, and just made sure the first few times we probably did send an all-colleague email, but we directed people to it. It's a message from them, go and hear from them, go and see it. So it got people into that pattern of going to our platform to watch things and see things and checking it first thing and daily. But I think ultimately just letting people actually see and hear them. They might see the corporate headshot photo when they first join and that's it, but actually letting them see and hear, and go and record a video with them, go into their office, make time, put time in their diary. I went along just with a little phone tripod the other day and just recorded a really, really short vertical video with our Director of Rugby Development just ahead of our domestic finals there on Saturday. Tell us why it's important, why should the rest of the business care about this, and why is it such an important day that you and your team are working on. And I think this is where, like we kind of mentioned it previously, but the moments feature is going to be really, really strong for us. We're just starting to use it, but I think the moments feature, particularly for us, is going to be really, really good because people do have short attention spans, but actually can get across that message really, really quickly in such a quick and more digestible format too.
Yeah, brilliant. I think as well, one thing I've certainly seen in my role, I think a lot of businesses, when it comes to, maybe overthinking leaders putting comms out there, it doesn't need to have high production quality. I've seen that. That's a perfect example with your chief exec, Sarah. Like, it was literally him with his phone in his hand, a 5-minute video. Hey guys, here's my latest update about what's going on. Post. Didn't need it. I'm sure he thought about what he was going to say before it, but it didn't need an army of people to put that together and fine tune it. And we see that work really well. And once one leader does it, the hope is that others within that same organization can follow suit. Question to Bethan, like, what impact do you think it can have on trust and also the culture when you start to see like senior leaders in a business start to kind of put themselves out there with the comms?
Yeah, I think for us there was a number of things. One of our values is openness, and I think it really does bring that value to life, is having our leadership team, even if it's heads of, directors and CEO, come on screen and talk about things. And it's that rawness, because we do not do a heavy broadcast in literally most of the time the phone. I'm trying to get the camera out of the locker. So because they see it, it's a bit more like, it's not polished. People trust it. People believe it. It feels a bit more personal for them. So there's definitely that has had a significant impact. But also, in a way, it's kind of like our leadership team, we're really lucky, have always been quite on board with it, that it sets the tone for everyone else to do it as well. And it sets the tone that this is how we work in this organization. And I think people really value it. They're like, wow, Sally, who's our CEO, has like spent time while she's in Milan talking to all these athletes, watching all these sports. She spent time like interviewing like Matt Weston after he just won a gold. Like that's pretty cool. And I think people just it makes people realize how lucky and privileged they are to work in elite sport. And I just think it has significant impact, because I think Sarah and I talk about all the time, we forget our jobs are cool. So it reminds people, and that has a huge impact on our culture, because otherwise it can slip into quite an entitled place at times, and it kind of brings people back to the surface.
Yeah. Where could leaders get it wrong? So we might have senior leaders right now on this chat with us who are going to go, do you know what, I'm going to go away and I'm going to get stuck into our comps in our organization tomorrow. What doesn't work? Like where could they get it wrong, do you think?
An update for the sake of an update. Like, if you've got nothing to say, just don't say it.
Yeah,
I think is a huge one for us. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, thanks for wasting my time." Like, great.
Yeah. I think, like you mentioned there, the monthly chief exec videos. Yeah, we said it was monthly, but we never actually specifically said like internally that it was monthly. Yeah, it was an idea, but there's no point in updating people just for the sake of updating people. There should always be a message there, and I think that comes from an external sphere as well. You're not just putting things out for the sake of it. And then in terms of leadership, I think really owning it. If something has went wrong, that's fine. Own your message, and I think within the physical in-person town halls that we have as well, that's something that leadership always want to get across at Scottish Rugby. Like, it's fine to make mistakes. We're trying it. We're being bold. We're being brave. We're really trying. But I think don't be afraid to make mistakes, or don't be afraid to get your message wrong, because you can always clarify that in the future as well if you want to re-record or something like that. Don't just try things. I think just trying to engage with your audience in a new and different way, and the rest, although will be siloed on your department or such, like, the rest of the business wants to know what's going on. If the rest of the business wants to know what you're working on, or actually that's really cool. Like, it might just seem like the day-to-day to you, but it's really cool. And like Bethan touched on there, I think our jobs are really cool. It's almost dream come true territory to be working in sport full time and all of that. And I think one example we just had recently was we hosted in the Guinness Women's Six Nations, Scotland, England here, Scottish Grass Murrayfields, and there was 30,000 people here, and it was hugely emotional on the day. We were supporting other departments, and we're all crying at Team Arrival. We thought, what on earth? Like, everyone's been working on this day to day, and I think that's where sport is so different to corporate. You know, you're working on things day to day to day to day, and you're like, yep, that's going to happen, that's going to happen. But equally, when you see these things come to life, and we had the largest attendance for a women's standalone sporting fixture in Scotland, and by quite a country mile as well. It's by about 11,000 people. But the day to day is so not monotonous, but it's just, that's your job, you get on with it. But when things come to life and you see how emotive and actually the societal change that sport has brought to people across the nation, that's where your job is really having an impact. No matter if you're keeping people connected, or colleagues connected to make sure they can do their job, or you're delivering, you know, standalone events like that. I think that's where I digress, but that's where the jobs are really, really cool, and that's where the difference really, really is. But I think that's where leaders could also get it wrong, because yes, this is our day to day, but equally, like, these moments and these events in sport are people's dreams, really. They're what they've worked their whole life for, and it's such a big thing to come to sporting events.
Wow. Great insights. I'll move on to lesson 4, which is about getting to know your stakeholders. Because again, you know, great internal comms only works if it's useful to the people that you're trying to reach ultimately. So to Beth, like, how do you identify what different stakeholders across the business actually need from internal comms?
Yeah, so I think I was quite lucky because I took over this role during a quite significant restructure. So I got, I guess, the keys to the new way. And what I did is I actually just sat down with everyone from our CEO, and I said, how blank is this canvas? What do I have to play with? What do I have to work with? What do you expect? What do you want? What do you want it to feel like? And then trickled down to all employees, like admin, staff, coordinators, what their heads of leadership team want from it, and just kind of got those different perspectives. Because without that, I could have just been making it up as I go. And I think, you know, today's world, data is really important. But I also think so is sitting down and just having a conversation. And we do have some milestones we do have some surveys that we ask every now and then, and obviously we look at our engagement rates. At the end of the day, sit down and ask what people want. I think that helps. And, you know, you don't have to give them what they want, but you can give them a little bit of it, and then they'll get the full picture eventually.
No, I think feedback, like you say, feedback is an essential part of it. Sarah, what do you think some of the biggest pain points are for your stakeholders, for the users of kind of your systems when it comes to internal comms?
I think one of the major things is people saying that they can't find what they're looking for, or such like. And as Bethan's kind of alluded to, that sometimes you do have to be a bit firm and go, well, it actually was there, it was front and center. Did you actually read that article? Did you actually click on it? Did you actually, you know, it was there. So you kind of do need to be quite firm and put that ownership back on your colleagues, unfortunately. And I think what has helped though is the search functionalities within the analytics within the Oak platform as well. That definitely helps, because it allows us to see what people are searching for. If they're searching for the menu for the staff canteen 5 different times and from 5 different people, then okay, let's make the menu more front and center than it already is, because you know what, people actually aren't seeing it for whatever reason. So I think, yeah, being quite firm in putting ownership back on colleagues, but equally then taking on board feedback that people are giving you, like Bethan said, like, just speak to people. There's such a power in actually just speaking to your colleagues, speaking to people that you don't sit next to in the office, and getting out and about into the field if you can as well. Definitely helps.
Great. Question to Bethan then, how do you make sure the intranet is something that people want to use as opposed to something that they feel like they have to use?
I think it's having a mix of practical and exciting content is one of them. You know, we're very lucky in these positions. We have a lot of behind the scenes information that the public isn't able to see. So we use a lot of that to sort of bring people onto the fun side. And we also, like, we do quite a few silly things. Like, we put the bats on, we put the snow on, we use confetti on bonus day if there is a bonus. And we just, like, we kind of gamify it in a way that, like, we just make people have a laugh on it every now and then. Everyone hates me for the bats, but they're on the platform, they're smiling. That's all that matters.
Brilliant. Right, I'm going to move on to lesson 5 because I'm conscious of the time because it's flying away from us today. So this is our final lesson, which is around measuring success, proving return on investment, and question to Sarah: what measurable impacts has good internal comms had on Scottish Rugby?
I think for us, it's just the most measurable impact's been the dramatic increase that we've had in engagement by having one person solely focusing on it. And that's not, I completely understand that's a privilege because I've, like I said, been here for 6 years, and for the first sort of 4 of those years at least, there wasn't an internal comms person, and then I came in about 18 months, and people recently, and then people were in there before me as well, but it is still a fairly new function to have one dedicated resource in it. And I think it definitely pays off if you can have it at all. In the first sort of 10 months, we saw such a marked increase. I mean, I think it was at 70% mark increase in weekly engagement, which is huge. And equally, the marked improvement was also people just telling you in the office, just saying, oh, that's good. Oh, I didn't know about that. Okay, that was good. And actually just getting that visible and not physical, but feedback in person from people too. That was such a huge difference that people were seeing right away.
Yeah, brilliant. Bethan, like any campaigns, projects that you're particularly proud of that have made an impact at UK Sport internally?
I would say our Milan Cortina campaign was definitely that I'm most proud of. We had a lot of engagement. It was a bit tough at times because the medals weren't flying in as much as they were for the Summer Olympics. But we still had, like, even though it wasn't the best outcome, we still had a lot of engagement, and we got to see a lot of behind the scenes information. And I think we really reminded staff how cool our world is, which is sometimes really hard to do, which I think people would find hard to do.
Brilliant. Right, we've obviously got a lot of people with us today, so I want people to take away some kind of practical tips and advice from you guys. I mean, it's been really useful today, just kind of hearing about your experience specifically in the organisations. But Sarah, have you got like a piece of practical advice that you would give to anybody who's watching this now?
Yeah, I think I kind of touched on it there, but for me, it's just get out and actually speak to people, actually speak to your colleagues. Like, that might sound really, really simple, but I think even if you're a new start or if you've been in an organisation a long time and it's a large one, people are always coming and going all the time, just physically try and speak to as many people as you can, whether that's on Teams, but ideally in person if you can. The power of just standing chatting to somebody in the kitchen or over a cup of coffee or over lunchtime, the power of that is, I can't even describe it, because you'll draw things out of people that you go, well, you're working on that, that's really, really cool, I think everyone else should know about that too. And it turns into be a really good campaign or a really good story. And I think, yeah, it might sound really, really simple, but there's so much power in just speaking to people.
Bethan, same question, practical piece of advice?
I completely echo what Sarah had to say. My practical piece of advice is don't be scared to try things. Like, sometimes I think in these roles we can find ourselves overthinking what we're trying to achieve. Just try it. If it doesn't work, just delete it, remove it. You know, you can say something's monthly and then go, sorry guys, no one actually cares, in a much more polite way. But yeah, like, we used the recognition tool. No one used it after 4 months. We just deleted it. No one's questioned where it's gone.
Same, yeah. I started moments as well, but I done it carefully, but I just done it. Yeah. I think having the autonomy as well, and every organisation's different. I'm really, really lucky that we do have the autonomy just to go and try things, go and do things. Doesn't work, it's fine. Tried.
Brilliant. Right, we're going to move on to the Q&A shortly. I'll just summarise kind of what we've touched on today. So it's been super useful, and hopefully everybody who's been listening has found it useful, and we'll get to some questions. But I think we've said, move away from this one size fits all comms. Think outside the box, try different tactics. Certainly, it's going to help. There's kind of there's no wrong answers really. You can just try everything and see what works, and like I say, speak to the people that you're talking to, focusing on the relevance and not just the reach. It's not just about getting it in front of somebody, it's making it suitable for them. We've talked about the types of language that can be used, and talking to people in a universal way, giving the employees a voice. So again, we've seen these examples of the UK sport and the Scottish rugby. You can see on the right hand side these timelines. That's where individuals within those organizations are taking time out of their day to share what they're up to, images, fundraising events, giving them the opportunity to be able to do that, and giving them the tools to do that is key. Building trust through authentic leadership. And like we've said, an example can literally be a 5-minute video recorded on a phone in 5 minutes and shared instantly with an entire organization. As long as that message is relevant, it certainly can humanize the person behind an intimidating job title. And that can make a huge difference to the culture. And using data where you've got it to prove the impact, making decisions based on what you can see is working. If you put in content out there and people aren't reading it, change up the content. If you can see something is working, double down on it. Follow the things that are working well, and then spread that across every content creator that you've got working. So yeah, I just want to say thanks to both of you for your insights today. It's been really, really helpful. I'm going to move on to the Q&A section because we've got 5 minutes, so we're not going to get to everybody, unfortunately, but I think what we could maybe do is take some of the questions that have been asked today, maybe share them with Sarah and Beth afterwards, and we can certainly share via email anything that we've talked about. So we've got a question from Rachel, which is, we don't have a central internal comms function within horse racing at the moment. If you were to pitch the reason for starting on a large scale, what are the most important selling points of having that central comms function? So Bethan, you're on the left. I'm going to ask you first.
I would say, and I think I've probably got a bias towards this, the employee engagement and the connection to what we're doing. And I think, as we've touched on a few times in sport, we often forget what we're doing is actually cool. So you can really use internal comms to drive that high performance, to drive engagement to the end game, and to drive that reminder of why we're doing what we're doing. I know that you probably need some numbers behind that, but I think at the end of the day, it is seeing the impact that it has on the end game and the end goal and the high performance.
Sarah, what would your pitch be?
I think, yeah, I absolutely agree with what Bethan said as well. I think from a sort of senior, if you're pitching to senior leadership for a sort of dedicated resource and the budget and funding required to do that sort of thing, I think ultimately asking them to have a look at your strategy, your sort of, I'm not sure, like 2, 3, 4, 5 year strategy. What's the business's purpose? What's the business's what are you trying to achieve, and what are you working towards on a daily basis? And I think having internal comms ensures that there's one central place and there's one sort of platform that all your colleagues can see what you're actually working towards. If you might have strategy documents for departments, or you might just have one business strategy, but I think you'll have to-do lists or North Stars or something like that within it. And I think if you can see where action is being taken and where progress is being made, then it actually it makes everyone come along with you. It builds momentum, and I think the more open and transparent that organisation and colleagues can be with each other, it only serves for a better and more a more productive organisation too, and workforce, because everyone's aligned in what they're doing and everyone knows what the end goal is, really.
Brilliant. Cool. Thank you for that. Hopefully, Rachel, that's answered your question. I'm going to read out another question from Catherine, which is looking at the sensitivity, confidentiality of information. So How do you deal with that if there's a particular media focus or scrutiny with your sport? So, Sarah, question for you.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Really, really good question. Thanks for that. I think depends what it is. I think it really, really on a case by case basis. We've had cases before where, yeah, coaches or high performance people have been under scrutiny by the media. They've been calling for them to leave and left, right, and centre, and it really, really depends. We wouldn't issue internal updates or any internal statements or anything like that unless there was really good reason for it, because there's just no need to. And equally, at the end of the day, we wouldn't do that for any other colleague, and that colleague's employed by us too. I think they address these sorts of things if you want to in person, and we develop a really tough skin working in sport, I think, and I think that's one thing that's really, really different. You asked that question at the very beginning, Mark, about the difference between corporate and sport. You do have to have a tough skin to work in sport, and especially sport where there's a focus, a public focus, a public interest. And I've worked in smaller sports too, where there isn't quite as much, but either way you have to have a really tough skin. And yeah, Bethan, I'm sure you'll agree on that.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well from a HR, this is my HR lens coming on here, but our staff know that if it ever gets out, they will get trapped. And we obviously all have it in our contracts. It's out the door. But I think as well, people know how lucky they are to know that information. So we do struggle with it. Sometimes we don't tell staff, and then it's in the media, and staff are like, why didn't you know about this? It's not perfect. But I think when we do release information internally, staff know. We actually don't remind them that often, but they know not to spread it. They know not to say anything. We often get criticism in the paper, and again, I think not in the paper, in the news. But as Sarah said, you're used to working in elite sport.
I think we kind of get ahead of it. Any potential leaks that we've had we can categorically say they've not came from colleagues, from staff. Anything that is particularly sensitive, and when we first started doing the chief exec videos as well, we would watermark them. We would watermark them just really, really simply with a Scottish Rugby logo. I think the very first ones we done, we put internal video only. So because there was a little bit of nervousness, that we started doing that, and then we were just like, there's no need to, like, it's fine. There's no need to, and he's quite comfortable with that too. So I think there's an unwritten rule, there's an unwritten trust there that everyone knows that as well, and anything that is potentially sensitive or confidential, like, everyone knows that. And we'll say generally if there's a statement or if there is an issue perhaps or a controversy, we might issue something internally, but we will say in that public will be made aware at such and such a time, or news will be going out at such and such a time, so people know that it's going to come, but they've got the heads up because they're the value of the business. The business values them, so that they get the information first. And it might only be 15 or 10 minutes prior, but the onus is there that the colleagues get that information first.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you for that question, Catherine. Thank you for the answers. That has taken us to 4 o'clock. Our hour is up. Thank you everyone who's joined. Thanks everyone who used the chat and asked the questions. We'll make the recording available to everybody, and we will see you next time.